All right, guys, welcome. It's Christmas week. Today is the 23rd. So,
Yeah.
one, Merry Christmas to everyone in advance, and two, just a shout out to a friend of mine, and Brock met him, Dick Enrico, 85 years old, Twin Cities legend, passed away earlier this week. This guy lived a full life, and so Dick, thanks for everything you did for the Twin Cities, and you were awesome. All
Fellow
right,
Iron
so.
Ranger.
Yeah, the Iron Ranger, the Guido, as many of us knew him by. All right, so this week we're going to take a little bit different thing. Every man over 50 remembers Dear Abby. And Dear Abby was a syndicated column in a newspaper, and people would write into Dear Abby for advice. And so our version of that's going to be called Dear Coach, and we're calling it Letters from the Field. And we don't have a mailbag. I wish I had a big mailbag next to me right now filled with letters. So we created a virtual one and enlisted the help of AI to come up with letters. And the AI was informed by all of the stuff we've seen because I store a lot of that stuff in AI. So these are all actual concepts we've heard just indirectly from guys. And so I'm going to read off these quick letters, and then I'm going to ask each one of us to just give a quick bit of advice, and then we'll pound through these. So we'll see how this goes. But I thought it was fun to put together because so many of these letters that fell out of all the work we've done with men over 50, these are recurring themes. So I think that a lot of guys are going to identify. So first letter from Frank, 58 years old, from Fargo, North Dakota. Frank says, Dear Coach, I used to wear a 34-inch waist, sometimes a 32 when I was locked in. Now I'm in a 38, and if I'm honest, it's tight. I tell myself I'm just bigger now, but I'm not a linebacker. I'm carrying 30 to 40 extra pounds, and most of it isn't muscle. If you asked me to do a pull-up today, I probably couldn't. I don't like how I look, and I don't like what that says about how I've been living. Where does a man actually start when he wants his actions to match his standards again? Brock,
Ooh,
kick it
yes,
off.
please. Yeah. It's so easy for you to look back at what used to be, and that is your barometer, and that's your standard that you're shooting for. But it's been years, or many cases, decades, or for Frank, who knows how long it's been. And that's the idea that they have in their mind that they got to live up to right now. And that is like, it honestly puts us all in that like all or nothing type of scenario over and over again. So it's like that. It's easy to just like, we do a good job here at Argent Alpha talking to guys about what success looks like in the next month and just shrink down that time frame. You're not going to be down to that 32 or 34 waist in a month, but here's what it does look like. It starts with small, consistent habits, steps that you could then build momentum off of. A lot of times if people aren't drinking enough water, that's where we start. If they're not doing any kind of working out, we walk. If they're not paying attention to their nutrition, we talk about starting with protein. If they're not paying attention to anything with their sleep, it's consistent bedtime or 10-3-2-1. Like any of those little steps to start creating a little bit of momentum that then, you start shifting your confidence. And once that confidence shifts, then you could take that momentum and add a little bit more and add a little bit more. And as James Clear talks about, that's just the way to build to success. So I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Mm-hmm. Clint, anything to add to that?
Oh, for sure. And Brock, I would agree 100% with everything Brock just said. I'm going to take it a little bit different view on that. First of all, he asked the question. Frank needs to make a decision. What am I going to do about this? And that decision needs to be, obviously to take action. Second thing here at Argent Alpha we would talk about is his future self vision. That's the first thing. He doesn't, before he does all the things that Brock talked about or simultaneously create that vision, because without the roadmap, he's got nowhere to go. And third is place himself out of the victim mode and into the hero role. Those along with everything Brock just said is what we do here. And so those are the first key things that I would say to do.
That's
Excellent.
killer. That's killer. Yeah, I love all that. I think, and where my head went was, um, we're all into frameworks and models, and I go to, okay, what's the best framework? What Frank is showing here is he's got awareness. So that's key number one. Next step for Frank is recognize he has agency. He has ownership and the ability to change these things. And then he needs to take action. And everything you guys said fits into that framework really, really
Yeah.
well. So,
Boy,
all
those three concepts right there are just, those are dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's great about a framework, though. It gives you just those 3 words gives you all you really need to just get started.
I
And
think
so,
if we would have reversed the order that we all went, it probably would have been more perfect, right? Jag, what you said, knowing the awareness and then making the decision and then taking the action, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's it.
exactly. That's like, and that's why a lot of times when we're talking to guys, you're going to hear similar things because there's not a million ways. There are probably a million tactics, but there's not a million ways to do this. This comes down to very simple things.
Yeah.
And so, all right, letter number 2. This is from Jim, 61, from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We're hitting the Midwest right now. My numbers are going the wrong way, is the subject. Dear Coach, I just got my labs back, and the trend isn't what I want it to be. A1C is creeping up. Blood pressure isn't where it used to be. My doctor says we should keep an eye on it and talk meds if it doesn't improve. I'm also carrying more weight than I should. How much of this is age, and how much of it is something I can directly influence? So, Clint, how about you take this one? What's your
Yeah.
first recommendation to Jim?
So my first thought on this is goes to nutrition, which I like to focus on. And this probably wouldn't be the first thing to talk with Jim about, but my thought is going to his definition of carbs. And that's what we see is a huge problem, creating what he just described. You know what I mean? So the carbs that are white for the most part that most of America eat, which is the bread, the rice, the grains, pizza, all those processed carbs. I think the antidote to what he's talking about is defining the carbs that he's consuming. Was where my first thought was. So you
Yep.
guys can compound on that too. So.
No, I it's definitely part of it. Brock, how about you?
A lot of those numbers, and when you're talking blood labs, it's not a quick fix, and longevity in and of itself isn't a short-term model, it's just like, this is the rest of your life, so, taking the lens of, what can I impact? What are some of the steps that I can start making, nutrition being probably the biggest one in this case, to be able to, look at the A1C and blood pressure and all of that. But yeah, just being real with yourself, and then just like anything else, comes back to your future self, and what is the identity that you're shaping.
Yeah, and we just speaking of A1C, we recently had a member who was over 7,
Hmm.
and I don't remember the ranges, but I know he was pre-diabetic. 2 years later, he's 5.5. He's dropped 47 pounds of fat, added 2.2 pounds of muscle. He's a completely new human. All of his blood work has improved. So I would tell Jim, one, I'm glad you're talking to a doctor, but that doctor who's probably subsidized or paid by healthcare or insurance probably is not going to get you there because they're symptom based. So prescribing a med is not going to solve any problem whatsoever. Chances are, Jim didn't list his height and weight, but my guess is if he was on here, we say, hey, how tall are you, Jim? He'd say, I'm 5'10", 240. We go, oh, let me guess, you're on a statin, maybe high blood pressure pills, and you sleep with a CPAP. And he'd say, how do you know that? I said, that's what happens when you have metabolic dysfunction.
Yeah.
And so I would say, I would start with Jim and say, listen, let me just show you what success looks like. Let me fast forward 2 years from now. And if you did all the things that we recommend guys to do, and paint him that picture of what he would look like. He's off meds or he never goes on them. His A1C drops, his waistline drops. Everything gets better. Everything. Are you willing to take a long-term view, or do you want to try to take a short-term view, not solve the problem? Your numbers might look better, but they're really not better, because I mean, like blood pressure pills, it might change your number, but it doesn't answer the question, well, why was your blood pressure high to begin with?
Right.
How do you solve that root issue? And so that's, I think, the answer for this thing is are you willing to commit to a strategy that doesn't involve probably any meds, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And so short-term tactics or long-term strategy, which one do you
Yeah.
want? So, all right, let's head over to, let's see, Mark, 62 years old, from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I can't remember, isn't
Dan Springer.
Dan Springer from Grand
Yeah.
Rapids, Michigan? So I don't know if this is one of Dan's friends, but
Dan's neighbor. Yeah.
yeah. So his kicks it off. Nothing's wrong, but something's off. And this is kind of a common one too. Dear Coach, I'm 62. I still train. I handle my responsibilities. Doctors say everything looks fine. but I don't feel as sharp as I used to be, physically or mentally. How do you tell the difference between normal change and standards that need to be reset? Okay, so I'll kick this one off. So this is one of those guys who probably is better than his buddies. You know, he probably isn't. He's probably less fat. He might even be trim. Um, but maybe he reads some of the stuff that our guys do, and he's wondering about how guys doing pull-ups. How are they rucking 5 miles with 30 pounds on their back? And he's probably questioning like, "Gosh, I'm better than the guys I hang with, but these sound like different kind of people." Um, I'm reading between the lines on this. I'm wondering if there's something that is off either like in the bedroom, libido, morning wood, ED, I mean, I don't know. I'm just reading between the lines. I think what I would tell a guy like Mark is go get your in-body scan and get some comprehensive blood panels. Let's just look at your numbers. Chances are he's not at 15% body fat or less. Chances are his hormones could be off. His T might be low. His thyroid could be iffy. Who knows about his lipids? That's my first reaction. Brock, what about you?
Knowing what his standards are and where he's going, those would be some things to be able to maybe find some of the what's that he could focus on, but then think larger scale or zoom out and what are we doing here and what is Argent Alpha? We're a community, right? So a lot of times when you don't have that energy and you're just trying to muster everything on your own, it might not be the answer. You could be doing all the right things and you just don't have that juice or that mojo and you're drifting, so being a part of a community and just having some of those low level accountability factors and someone to talk to and keep you in check are some areas to kind of get that burst or just be around other people. You guys have experienced doing the A3 standards on your own, and you've experienced doing them with a group. I mean, your results are drastically different, even if you're doing it with one other person.
Mhm. Clint, how about you?
Yeah, my head immediately went to testosterone when you said that, Jag. So I would, but I think I would start at the start with him. I would want to know what he was fueling with. And it sounds like he was better than most of his buddies, so he's in pretty good shape. What supplements is he taking? Is he on the right supplements? Is he on creatine? Things like that. They're going to help him cognitively and with his muscle tissue. Um, and once those simple questions are answered, I would look at a blood panel. We want to know what testosterone looks like and or what other things that could be causing this. So it's really not uncommon, right? This guy Mark is fairly fit. He's a good guy. He just doesn't. When you said mojo, I knew right where to go. And that's kind of what I was thinking. So
Yeah, and I think if he was in Argent Alpha, I think we'd tell him, hey, we're not going to say jump to blood labs out of the gate. We want you to establish some standards and some good habits and get some momentum going with things we know that work, and then bring in the blood panels and see if that's part
mhm.
of the equation. But if you think that you're just going to go get on T, not change habits and change your life,
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, the shortcuts just don't work.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
all right, here we got Tom 64 from Knoxville, Tennessee. Subject: the role I played is gone. Dear Coach, for a long time my role was clear. People needed me. I was in a management slash executive position. That's changed. Sold the business, stepped away. Kids are grown and out of the house. I didn't expect the shift to feel this noticeable. How do you create structure and momentum when the old structure is gone? All right, off the top of the head, Clint, you went through
Ah.
like a version of this, but self-imposed version of it. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so very timely question from Tom 64. I know the book Strength to Strength is going to be our January read and perfect place, right? He's looking for that next stage, it feels like. He was a former something and now he's moving forward. Um, and I think joining, having a community like Argent Alpha around where we do things like yearly planning. We do things like the eulogy project, which really, really always spoke big to me. I talk about, but being in that community, having role models, um, and moving from the former something to the reinvention. And I'm just going to throw it out there. We were talking about earlier, a modern elder. and where does your wisdom fit into the rest of your life? And a point to that, what we do in Argent Alpha with the physical is the first step of what you're going to do with the rest of your life, and the wisdom that you're going to use, because you can't have one. You can't, you're not going to have the wisdom and be physically unable.
Hmm.
So.
Yep. Awesome. Love it. Brock?
I love the eulogy example you bring up, Clint. And just kind of as a refresher for those of you guys listening, it's from Hero on a Mission. And it didn't matter what you did, like is it Jem? I can't remember the guy's name in this scenario, but like, even if he was a CEO or, he had some marching orders that he went by professionally, and those are gone now. He doesn't have that role. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a former athlete, entertainer, CEO. None of that matters in the eulogy. And in this example, you're reinventing yourself. So it depends on like where you are now as your ground floor. What do you want to become? Who is your future self? Reinventing that. And great places to start. Community, like you said, Clint, is big. Having some accountability. For going from something that's so structured in your normal job and now you're retired, having some sort of routine, sticking to something, having some structure, don't leave it to chance. Those would be some of the frames that I would help put into place right from the start. And then from there, it's building that confidence and momentum comes.
Yeah, what my reaction initially was, one, this is pretty common for guys who are either forced into retirement or even voluntarily go into it. So that's a common time. Or you're in your 50s and for whatever reason your role is eliminated, part of an acquisition, part of a reduction in force, whatever. And the reality is when you're over 50 and you're a man, looking for your next gig is a lot more challenging. It's just the reality of it. And so what I think is, rather than looking for answers, is start asking better questions.
Mhm.
And so to me, part of this is like, well, what is reinvention? What is relevance after 50? And when you get in a group like ours, and again, these are, they're shameless plugs for joining our free community and just getting exposed to it. You're going to start getting answers. And one of our guys, also named Tom, he's been on this journey of trying 100 things and none of them were the right things. Well, that's part of the process sometimes, is trying a bunch of things to eliminate what doesn't work, and so it's like kissing a lot of frogs to find the prince. It's the same kind of concept. So being able to bet the garden, not the farm, go out and try new things, being vulnerable, being a lifelong learner, being a beginner at something, and I think that's a big challenge for a lot of guys over 50. But if you're able to overcome that, and you can do it within our group pretty easily, it's like we embrace it. You're gonna get on a path. Who knows if it'll take you 3 months or 3 years to find the answer, but that process is going to feel like it's guided and curated and intentional versus wandering in the desert, which I've had 4 of those years back, in between after a deal was done, couldn't wait to get out of there, and then you're like, all right, now what do I do?
Mhm.
That's just a bad, Donald Miller in Hero on a Mission talks about this. When a story ends and you're staring at a blank screen, it's a bad place to be. You want to
Mhm.
start a new story before the credits roll. You want to have a story ready to start. You don't have to have everything
Yeah.
figured out. So that's a
That
key.
was where listening to you talk. That's where my mind went, is that exact scenario. And something that we've seen within Argent Alpha is, one of the targets for guys is getting to 15% body fat. Just because everything, all of your markers, the way that you work out, the way you eat, all of this stuff typically is in line then. But people who have that as they're hell bent on hitting 15%, and then what happens after that? If you haven't identified or don't have a clear future self of what does it look like? I've worked so hard to get here. That it's really easy to cool the jets. In the same way that it is when you retire and not knowing what's next there. So, Jag, I like what you said about asking better questions. It's all like in the broader context of mindset, thinking about what you think about. like you two, for the three of us, before we come on here, we have our triad group where we're each other's board of advisors, so to speak. We're poking holes in different things, or, hey guys, what do you think about this concept, or this is what I'm working on. What are your thoughts? Like, having that, is what community is all about.
Mhm.
I want to chime into that, Brock, because I was thinking about this, a guy like this, and everybody or most people at our stage that are thinking about reinvention or whatever, that, there's plenty of books to read out there and we all read them. The difference maker is we're seeing people with role models in person, all of us, and everybody in the group is doing something that's a role model to each of us. That's the power of the community as well. We can read the book, but having that personal feedback, personal relationships, is where it all happens.
Yeah. It's awesome. All right, Clint, I know if you got to bow out, Clint, you can do the Irish goodbye if you need to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions to
One
go.
more question, then I got to run.
All right. All right. Where is it here? Okay. All right. Mike, 57 from Plano, Texas. Subject line, not everyone is on board. Dear coach, I'm raising my standards. Been reading your book, looking at training, food, and how I spend my time, and getting more intentional about them. My wife thinks I'm taking it a bit too far. Friends joke about it. I don't want tension, but I also am not interested in lowering the bar. How do you handle that well?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to go to our weirdest guy on the call. That's Clint. Clint's not afraid of being weird. Clint, how would you? You're probably going to give an extreme answer, but I love how. Again, the reason I say that, Clint's the kind of guy who show up at a party and bring a cooler of food so he can control his food supply. So
Yeah.
that's like he's owning it, man. That's why I love to hear what your advice would be.
So, first thing that came to mind is a kind of a little phrase, and it has to do with business and I think in finance as well. But first they laugh, then they fight you, then they join you. And we're all, if you're in a position, or whatever your thing is, everybody's got their own. But if you can be a role model, um, if you can be somebody that leads the way in certain things, we all have our our strengths. But I enjoy doing that. And I think if, hey, whether it's alcohol, whether it's smoking, whether it's eating, um, there's certain standards that I have that I'm just not going to do. And I'm not, I won't throw it in anybody's face, but I work very well with role models. You guys are role models for me and so many others too. So I try and be a role model in that. Hey, if you don't want to eat that, bring your own cooler. Don't say a word, just do it. And I'll tell you what, everybody at the table will look at you and go, man, I want to do that next time. Or it'll poke an idea to pack their food or whatever. So yeah, I'm weird that way. I'll agree. Before I bounce and I got to run, there's a common theme in all of this that I see for every question, no matter what, and it kind of starts with your future self. And I think everywhere we go, if everybody just pointed at their future self, it answers a lot of questions. So
Yeah, that was
anyway,
a great answer, Clint.
Right.
It's funny hearing you say that. I've gone through these in my life where I'll either look at the guy and go, I'll either be like ticked. I go, well, why am I ticked? Because it's me. It's not him. It's
yeah,
me being insecure about something, or I'm inspired by him. Like, damn, I want that. Whether it's I want a horseshoe tricep, or I want to be successful in whatever the guy's doing. So I think that's like a road I think a lot of us face is, are you inspired or intimidated? And like, just choose the inspired. Just force yourself over in that other lane to try to learn about it. Like, why
I
is this guy
mean,
doing this?
at this point in life, why, like, if not now, when, right? What am I going to be? What am I waiting for? What am I? And
Yeah,
that's really what I feel, if not now, when?
yeah.
So
No,
anyway,
it's great.
yeah.
Brock, is your guest gonna answer for you, or do you have a spot for that?
This is
I'm
my
out, guys.
intern,
Thank you.
Piper. See
Merry
you, Clint.
Christmas.
See you, Clint. Have a great Christmas.
Right when you started talking about this, my mind immediately went to exactly the framework that you started with agency. Like, that is who's making the decision here. Have you decided? I've gotten pretty good at just rolling with this, but when she starts giving you face washes, it makes it tough to concentrate. Have you made a decision? What's your why? Why are you doing this? Those would be some of the questions, because if it's going to be something where your wife or it could be your wife or my kids aren't on board or whatever it is, you're going to find an excuse, and it doesn't sound like you have a strong enough why. So that's where I would start, and then just getting into some of the other frameworks that we talked about.
Yep. Nope, love it. All right, I got one quick
baby.
one. One quick one we'll close on. So this is from Brian, 61, Boise, Idaho. I work alone, so I can already tell this is going to be a lone wolf. This is a lone wolf guy, but he's reaching out, so there's hope. So, dear coach, I train alone and get results. I don't rely on motivation or accountability. Beyond information, what does a group actually add? Um, so I'll take a first stab at this. One, I've been in this spot before with different groups. Like I remember being part of a CEO group, and it worked until it didn't. And I've never been a big group guy personally, and I think it's not because groups don't work. It's because I didn't find the right group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the value that I'm seeing now with Argent Alpha is one for the lone wolves who are doing well. I'm sure Brian is doing well objectively, but one, how do you know? And that's why when you're in a group of other like-minded men doing the same things, you get an idea of what excellence looks like. And not that I need to chase Dan Springer or Tim Porth or something, Judge, but I want to know what they're doing because that helps make me better. I see what's possible. And so that's one big benefit of being in a group is you get to see on a big scale like what other men are doing and where you kind of slot in and learn from them. So I always say like if you're in a room and you're not chasing taillights, you're in the wrong room.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. The other part is you don't know what you don't know. And so when you're the lone wolf, even if you're doing well, you'll just do better. You will elevate your game by being in that room. And chances are, because we've had a number of lone wolves who have ultimately joined, when they get in, they realize they weren't king of the hill, and there's other guys doing things. And again, we're not competing. That's not the point of this. The point is they had more potential in themselves that they
Mm-hmm.
were able to realize by being in a group. So those would be my initial thoughts for Brian from Boise. How about you, Brock?
Totally. Yeah. I think just having other people's perspectives in there too. And, something I've said to a lot of the guys in person in Argent Alpha when they're in training or even at some of our live events is, you likely are the leader of your pack, of whether it's your family, your friend group, your business, but, when you come together with other leaders, you get that perspective that you can't get outside of your own mind. You only have one point of view, right?
Mhm.
The cliche saying of, if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. It's so important. We sharpen one another. We keep each other on task. We keep each other accountable, and you have a bunch of role models. A lot of my role models are in this group, and you guys are all older than I am, but I'm looking and watching for those things that you're doing well, and I'm just like, well, I want to try to not only minimize mistakes, but just have as much of an impact as I can in my life. And these guys are doing it so well, and you don't get that when you're on your own.
Mhm. Well, first thing I have to say is I can't believe you answered that so well, given the duress you're under.
Well, is there someone around here? I can't even tell.
It looked like you were a blonde for a while. Um, yeah, it's funny. I think the lone wolf is the toughest one because a lot of times there's a it comes down to ego, and I think if they can get over the ego part of it and get in and just kind of like just be a little more vulnerable, they'll unlock so many
Totally.
benefits. And I'm talking to myself on this. I mean, and now I'm in another mastermind group that's more business related, and it's you do better with coaching in a community.
Hmm.
We all do, no matter what level you're at. I mean, there's always another level, and so whether you do with us or another one, doesn't matter. Just go sharpen the saw with a bunch of other people that are trying to accomplish the same thing, and you will improve. And then the other part too is even if you are like at the top of the heap, there's so much value in being a guide to others. So
No
let's just say
kidding.
you came into Argent Alpha and you crush everything. It's like, awesome, glad to have you. We'd love to learn from you. And then that'll take you to another level. So there's this sort of give and take synergy that happens that is, you can only get in a community. You can't get it on your own.
You said it with, a lot of times in lone wolf, or what am I going to get out of this? It's like that ego thinking that you have it all together is, it's in a sense dangerous, so the humility, I've brought this up to so many guys in person, of just like the humility it takes to join a group, because what are you saying when you join a group that you don't have it all figured out? That's a first step of it. And as we went through the that eulogy exercise a few years ago that we already talked about, you can only get so far in your own health, or where you have to then, you look at the guy's answers of their whys or the reason that they're doing it. It was always about doing something for somebody else. Your legacy is not about you. It's about paying it forward, or, relationships, whether it's your marriage or your family, or what you're involved with after you're not working anymore. And so that's what you get, is some different perspectives, that you might be so locked into your profession or your own personal health. It's just all me, that it just like, it helps you open your mind to what else is out there, and who else is doing it really well that you could tack onto.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think I'll close with this. I mean, we created a free community in Argent Alpha to give guys an opportunity to come in and check things out, get a little bit of the vibe, kind of do a little bit of a test drive. You don't get access to everything, but you get access to enough to kind of go, is this my posse or not? Are these my
Hmm.
guys? And so there's a link in the notes that you guys, if you're interested, go check out the free community. There's no obligation, no credit card required, anything like that. But just if it's not us, find your group, especially men over 50. The stats on loneliness and number of friends, and things like suicide rates, all these things they're in the same ballpark. And when you get in a group of like-minded men, you just reduce the risk of all those things. You increase the odds of success. And we've had a bunch of guys. I mean, so many friendships have been formed. And I don't know. I'm not saying come into this to find friendships, but that's going to be a byproduct of engagement with this community.
Hmm.
We see it all the time. I mean, it's pretty amazing what the multiplier effect is when you get a bunch of guys together talking about similar topics.
Hmm. And just look at the push in society and culture, in convenience, and all of the pushes are uh, pushing you more towards isolation anyway, right? And it's like, in some ways it's better productivity wise, and technology is great, but outside of that, like, we're built to need community. We're built to need relationships and have bonds that, and unlock so many things that are just outside of yourself.
Yeah, and we do two live events a year, end of April, early October. One's in Scottsdale, one's in Minneapolis, and it's been pretty cool. Now we've done five of these. Number six is coming up weekend of April 24th in Scottsdale, and seeing guys get together, like go from the Zoom meeting to real life, relationships are formed. There's something about that, and I think as we grow and we get more concentration in each market, there'll be opportunities to do in real life meetups, those sorts of things. That to me is part of, hey, some people say, hey, why do you care about getting to 100,000 men over 50 in your community? It's because you need more mass to have more impact, and that's and we adding our in real life component to this just accelerates it. You don't need it. We guys are getting results without that, but as we add in this in real life thing over time, and that's what the live events do. I mean, and twice a year is pretty effective at being kind of the connective tissue that binds guys together beyond the virtual part.
So much so.
Yeah, but it's pretty powerful. So, all right, well, the mailbag is empty temporarily. We've gone through the letters. If you guys, anybody listening to this, if you have questions, if you want to submit a question, send it to info@argentalpha.com. Again, I'll put that email address into the notes. But I think it'd be great if we actually all these questions came from real life examples. They're not made up. but I'd like to get some actual, men's names from towns, cities across the country, across the globe. We've got guys in, a few guys internationally, a couple, one's in Italy, one's, I think somewhere, I can't remember if it's France. Anyway,
yeah, United Arab.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So drop your questions. Maybe we'll add one at the end of each episode, and because I think it's kind of fun. I mean, this is where it gets practical. We can get out of talking about sometimes frameworks and things like this, and just get into practical advice and how guys can take action. So anyway, well, hey, get back to decking the bows with decking the halls with boughs of holly.
Balls of holly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, have a great Christmas. We'll see you next week. Thanks.